Need some coffee. Freaking forgot my coffee today.
The Obsessive DP.
Welcome back to the Obsessive DP. I am Ryan. This is the show where we go over high-level cinema quality visuals. Today, what are we talking about today? I forgot already. Today we're gonna plan how to shoot with the sun. We're gonna specifically talk about golden hour because that's the most beautiful time to shoot outside. Most photographers know that. If you've ever woken up at 4:30 a.m. for a photo shoot, to hike up to a mountain because that's when the sun is perfect, you know what I'm talking about. But the joke's on you because you could have just done it at sunset. It's pretty much the same light, and usually you're awake at sunset. So text your photographer, tell them they suck if they made you get up at 4:30 in the morning. That should segue us right into our golden hour shoot. So pretty much every shoot we do at Naknek, we account for the sun. You need to know where the sun is going to be at all times during your shoot. Here is an example of a time that we shot during golden hour. All right, this was a hard one to schedule because on this shoot, we had to plan for the sun for about an hour and a half because we had about an hour and a half of footage that we needed to record, and we wanted to record it when the sun looked the best, not high noon. If you do it at high noon, you get skull eyes. It doesn't look good. Don't shoot during high noon unless that's the look you're going for, or if you have some overhead scrims. Since we did it at sunset, we didn't have to worry about the sun being above him. We knew that the sun was going to be behind him. So when we actually scouted this, we went to Google Earth, looked around our location, which you can do right here. You can actually look back and forth around at any location on planet Earth. And if you hit this little sun tab, then it shows you where the sun is going to be, which is freaking awesome. It's so helpful if you're shooting across country and you haven't been able to location scout or tech scout, or maybe you just had one quick location scout and you forgot to track the sun. You can do it here perfectly. People have used this for time lapses at sunset because they start the time lapse before sunset happens, and then they know exactly where the sun is going to land, and you can pick any date. This is what's cool. You're not just confined to today's date. You can look at any date in the future and know where the sun is going to be, because turns out the sun moves around the earth quite a bit. But it's an amazing tool for a DP to know where the sun's going to be. So back to this shoot. Yeah, we did scout it, so I did use my Sunseeker app to see it, but it was just nice when I was actually working on the overhead diagram. It was helpful to go back and scout it on Google Earth. I didn't have to actually be there. I just scouted it digitally. All right, so here was our first shot. The sun was actually in clouds. You see, there's actually no hard shadows at all. But as we move through it, the sun, it starts peeking out here. You see how his left side is hotter now than when we started? Camera left side here is brighter than later, and that was our bounce. Our bounce was actually bouncing into here, and then we start getting the sun here. All right, so that was our first take. Watch what happens on our last take. See how the sun is just perfectly backlighting these bushes? I love this. Even some of these mountains here, the sun is perfectly backlighting it. You can't get a light to backlight mountains. You know, that's why you need to work with the sun if you're doing a beautiful scenery shot like this, to know when the sun is going to be edging out these mountains. See these little ridges and everything? I kind of wish this was in focus, honestly, because it'd probably look a little better. You'd be able to see the ridges. Oh, see how that light changed there? Pretty immensely.
That it is going immensely.
See how the light from here on this bush? Oh, here's the background of focus here. We were doing some funny focus pulls here. All right, so that bush is nice and backlit. Watch what happens as the sun goes down. Oh, boom, it's gone. So this was just what we had to do. We were running out of time. We were actually literally running from sprinklers because we could not figure out how to turn them off. So we lost some time there because we weren't supposed to be shooting right here when the sun went down. On the schedule, I planned for us not to shoot at this time because it doesn't look as good as here. This is the perfect lighting. It was the last, run through he was going through. It was just perfect. But look at this huge shift. So now the sun's actually gone. It's actually behind a mountain. Obviously, it's still lighting the world. The sun it's not black back there yet because the sun is still illuminating the sky, but there's no direct light because it's behind a mountain. And this is actually our M18 here, hitting him on this side of the face. We wanted to at least try to maintain a consistent sun. So our sun here is the M18. And we're live. camera stopped recording for some reason, so we're back. I hate these cameras, but they're good for things like this. We were talking about M18s, okay, and how we were keeping a consistent light for several hours here. It's not telling me the times. I think we started right before sunset. You can actually see in the behind the scenes shot, these long shadows. So there was some long shadows because the sun's over here, right? This is the actual sun. We didn't set up the M18 yet. We just had an ultra bounce here, a 12 by, and that's what filled in the other side of his face, right? So no M18. We actually scrimmed down the sun because it was a little hot back there. So we did a double and a single scrim. So a stop and a half down because the sun was hitting his head a little too hot. And that's it. That's all we had. But like I said, to keep the consistency, what we did was kept the 12 by there. And then you can see here, it's obviously darker out here than it was earlier, right? It's brighter here. Out in the backdrop. Well, actually, it looks brighter because the sun is directly hitting these things now, where it was behind clouds here. So this is just more even when the sun was higher. And then as the sun came down, it started hitting these a little more directly, edging out everything in the background, looking awesome side light. But this is actually manicured. This is actually our M18. Again, it's still bouncing into that 12 by, filling him in on this side, but this is actually the M18. It was a little hot, but it's looking good. It's looking nice, and what it allowed us to do was maintain consistency all the way through. This is only a 15-minute shot, but look how much the sun changed by the end of it. It's like crazy. I mean, you need to do a lot of color correction here to make this look like it did when it started. But that is such a shift. But the thing is, the light on him changes so much less. You know, imagine if the light on him changed as much as it did back there. You wouldn't be able to make out his face. It'd be super dark. But that M18 allowed us consistency. There's one other shoot we did. Again, using Google Earth to show us exactly where the sun is going to be. I knew from this, because I looked at Google Earth, that the sun is going to be actually over here, just out of frame, keying him on this side. You see how this side's a little more lit than this side? But what we did was we actually filled in this side to make it a little more even on both sides of his face. He's walking towards us. It was a walk and talk, so we actually had a really interesting overhead diagram for this, because everyone needed to walk with the gimbal that I was walking with. The secret here was actually, it was a really smoky day because a lot of fires were happening. So the sun seemed like it was behind clouds. You see how it's not super bright. You're not getting any of those edge lights on these ridges that I wanted and I planned for and we would have got if the smoke wasn't as bad as it was. But smoke was a bit of a nightmare. And it kind of ruined our look here. The colorist, it looks like the colorist was able to pull the orange out of the sky, which is good because it was pretty orange. Let's real quick go over some overhead diagrams for these shoots. We actually rented a lot of gear for this one, and this is our overhead diagram. And it was really cool. Again, using Google Earth, we were able to see exactly this frame was gonna look like before we even showed up, and exactly where the sun was gonna be at the time that we were filming. So what you wanna do is you wanna plan for that hour to hour and a half window of golden hour to make sure that you're shooting during that time. If it takes too long to set up, you may lose that perfect light that you need for your shot, because once the sun goes down, it has a totally different look, as you saw on the other spot. Here's our diagram. We had our key here, which was a Aperture 300D. Wanted to get jokers, didn't have the budget. Ultra bounce behind, some reflectors on this side, and then here's the sun. Problem was the bounces and the reflectors didn't do that much because the sun was behind the clouds. So we really didn't use these reflectors. This was the plan, to give him a nice edge. So he's edged on both sides, double edged. Didn't work. Ultra bounce, we basically had these 8x, which did a little bit, but what we really ended up doing was walking with the camera. So imagine the camera is on the Ronin here, on the gimbal. We have our fill, our neg fill here, and then we have our key here, and we were also bouncing it with a 4x beadboard, which was also walking with us as we backed up to make sure that the ratio looked nice on his face. We were going for a pretty even look on his face. Anyway, to recap, scheduling is everything when you're working with the sun, which really as a DP, you're kind of always working with the sun. Even when you're working in interiors, the sun is going to shine through windows and it's going to light up things in your frame or maybe bounce off something out of frame, but it's still lighting your frame somehow. So you need to be able to have full control over that sun because it's very hard to overpower the sun with cinema lights. You can use some 18Ks, which is a sun in a can, and that could help a lot, but still the sun could play on your scene if you're not aware of it. So using flags, using Duvetine, we blocked off whole houses, whole windows using Duvetine because those spots needed a kind of a night feel, like an early morning or night feel, and you can't have the sun blasting through those windows into your scene. Even if you're not seeing the windows, the sun's still coming through and it's still playing. So making sure where the sun is at all times is super important. And then for golden hour, just make sure you schedule out your shoot in accordance with where the sun is going to be, and you always know where the sun is. So that's what we did with the shoots. And then if you're going to go beyond golden hour, make sure you have some kind of light that will keep that consistent sun on your character. But no, it's going to be really hard to light the rest of your scene if you have a wide shot. I hope this is helpful. Comment down below if you have any questions. Stay obsessed.